Hi. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Let me
Hello.
let me just change this. Okay, it is Cyberpunk Geek Time, and we are sharing from my page to other pages, so bear with us. Hello, Gwen. Glad you're here. We're going to be pulling in comments from everywhere. Greg is sharing this in the group, so stay tuned. We have some amazing people today, and I'm going to introduce you. I'm super excited because we're talking about brand and brand strategy. So, first and foremost, I'm going to bring on our special guest. Just wait for it. And I'm out of here. Here she is. Wait, is it? Did I do it? I don't know. What am I looking at?
There's
Yeah,
you.
I did it. Okay, introduce yourself, Hayley.
All right. So I am Hayley Bowen. I am the founder of Marketing on Purpose and of the DIY Marketing Group. And I'm just actually sharing into my groups as we speak. So I'm going to just post that and then I can give you all my attention. So just one second.
Right, and I'm gonna move it over to Greg.
Hey
And
everyone. As you all know from the group, I'm Greg McKinnon and I run at Original 72 Creative, and we are a full service website graphic design and digital marketing agency in Vancouver, Lower Mainland.
okay, and check this out. Okay, I got all three of us on here. We are in the right position. It's amazing.
The technology is amazing because I've got it shared on my two groups. You've got it shared. Greg's got it shared. Like this is awesome.
Right? Gwen is saying hello, everyone. Okay, now I'm going to look at my notes. I have everybody up. This is our first time at a three-way call using Ecamm Live, which is something we love to use. And so today, let me just start. Have you ever gotten confused about building your brand and your brand strategy? Hayley is joining us, who is an expert and has like a wicked geeky background in brand and brand management. So we want her because she's dealt with some big beer brands and some other brands. And so we thought we'd drill in because we know Greg deals with brand identity and Hayley deals with brand strategy. And I am your moderator today, asking
I
questions.
thought you were going to go with, and Greg likes beer, so
Right? And Greg likes beer. So if you guys want to know more about branding and what that means, because I know everybody hears this like, oh, focus on your brand. Your brand is your personality and blah, da, 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 da. Right? So we're going to get into understanding the difference between brand identity and brand strategy. We're going to get into brand strategy and how do we do it, what the heck it is. And, and then we're going to talk a little bit about brand identity. We're going to stick in the middle a little bit today. But so I'm going to bring it round. If you don't know us, we already introduced ourselves. And at the end of our chat, we will let you know where you can find each of us and what we're doing. And so as I bring it in, let's just dial it right in. Can you guys please give me a definition of the difference between brand strategy and brand identity? Hayley, why don't you take the floor?
All right. So a lot of people think that your brand strategy is all about what does it look like? What does your logo look like? What's your website? They think if they have that, then they have a brand. But that's not the case. That's like the common misconception. A brand, the best way I've heard of brand, so let's define brand first, and then we can kind of talk about the difference. So a brand, best defined, is the heart and soul of your business, right? That's like the best. Also, it is it's the perception that people have of your business. So you have the opportunity by creating a strong brand strategy to define what you want that perception to be, right? What is the heart and soul? And the heart and soul is not your logo, right? It's not your colors. The heart and soul is much deeper than that.
Interesting. Okay. I like that. Greg, you're on board with that? Would you add anything?
I completely agree with that. Yes, and I feel a little bit like people that maybe don't do the brand strategy first will create an identity, and it is a brand, but they don't have that underlying meaning of what they're all about and what they're trying to achieve and who they're trying to go for and stuff like that. They think of themselves as having a brand, but maybe just without all of that underlying strategy behind it. So it's really important to start with that and then move on to the identity portion so that you're clear on your business and where you're trying to get to and what your business is.
So, guys, I think you're going to want to grab a pen and paper because this is going to be a good chat where we're going to totally drill in. Joe is saying exactly, Hayley. Exactly, right?
I like Joe.
Right? Agreeable. We like the agreeable. It's true. Yeah. So, speaking of this strategy, Hayley, how do we go about building? Because we're going to jump into the meat of this conversation because that, I think, is where everybody's going to get some, we're online and everybody's got a face and a picture and a website. And just, even for me, like, we're building the boat as it's sailing. So how can we get really granular and learn what we need to be thinking about?
Yeah. So the first thing to remember is you've got to really know your customers. So if you're building a brand strategy, understanding your customers and understanding yourself is the place to start. So identifying who that ideal customer is for you. So not like everybody, like who is the ultimate person that you want to work with. That's all that matters, right? And you can't just guess about them. The problem that most people do is they're like, oh, I offer marketing coaching, right? Or I sell bath bombs. So anybody who likes to take baths is my ideal client. But that's not the case. There's certain people that are going to be attracted to you, and there's certain people that aren't. So you need to understand which ones are and why. To start building out like an ideal customer, we call them buyer personas, so that you can use the information that they give you to pull out the elements of your brand strategy. So the elements that you would want to pull out, of course, would be your brand promise. So your brand promise is what are you consistently going to deliver over time for your customers. So if you can put a flag in the sand and say, no matter what, this is what you're going to get from me. And they have to care about it. That's why you have to do the research. Because you could say, I'm consistently going to give, the most in-depth, knowledgeable experience they could possibly get. But if you interview your customers and they just want the top line, then you don't want that to be part of your brand strategy, right? Right. You need to understand what they want. What is the emotional things that they want out of you, out of your business? Interesting. So that's the brand promise. That's one of the elements.
How do you do that?
Oh my gosh.
Right.
So it's, you basically have to do your research, right? Which I have, and I can give it free to people in your group. I have a questionnaire that I put together that I think really touches on buying triggers and emotional reasons why people purchase. And I think that is the research that is often missing. Like people will interview people and be like, what do you like the best? What don't you like stuff like that. But we really have to dig deeper to understand because buying decisions are emotional, right? I think most of us in this group know that. Mm-hmm. And scientifically it's emotional, right? Like it is the limbic, I don't know. One of the side of the brain that actually makes a decision is not the rational side. So when you start selling things and building a brand on rational benefits, it's not deep enough to trigger people to fall in love with that brand. And you want people to fall in love with it because then they're going to be fans. And especially today, you want them to fall in love with it because buying behavior is changing. People are way more aware now of who they're buying from. They have relationships because of the online stuff, right? They know who they're buying from. They want their purchases to matter more. Millennials and Gen Z, if they are in your target audience, they really, really want to connect authentically with the brands that they buy.
They want to believe in them, right?
Yeah, they want to stand for more. So your promise needs to be back to that. Your promise needs to be something that they actually care about and that you can deliver time and time and time again. And it needs to be measurable. Like they need to be able to say yes or no. Like if you think of like one of the ones that stands out to me the most is like Geico, right? 15 minutes or less or your insurance is free or your whatever the tag is. So that's their promise. That's part of their brand. There's only one small part of their brand, but you need to define what that is. So that's one of the parts.
That's
I could go on all day.
right, because this is your specialty. So, and Hayley does have a course, but we'll mention that later. But in all of this, how long, or is it something you revisit often when you're doing this? Like, yeah.
I think you do it right the first time because you don't want to keep changing who you are. Your brand is like your heart and soul, right? So you don't want to keep changing your heart and soul. Then people are going to be confused in the market. So you got to do it right the first time. And if you've done it right, then it will appeal to your buyers. It will catapult you and push you forward because you're doing something you believe in. So I would say do it right, and then go with it.
Right. And Greg, you help people with their brands, and I mean, you're more the identity guy, but there's a lot. I mean, I know you said, guys, we get it on a call before this, a couple days before, and Greg said, "Oh my God, I would love if Hayley brought him a client," so that there was this transition, this flow of beautiful steps taken where it transitions so that Greg can do his job, Hayley's done her job. And so, Greg, is there anything you jump?
I would say, not having experienced it yet, but I feel like getting a brand strategy from someone like Hayley would make my life a lot easier.
Yeah, it takes like the guessing game.
Yeah, because basically, what I do is I will talk to a company and they'll be, they'll have no direction. They'll know what they're doing. They obviously have a business already and they're selling. But to me, while I don't do specific brand strategy like Hayley does, I do try to pull some of that information out of them to help me come up with their brand. So for me, Hayley mentioned she might share something later in the group. I'm curious to see that because I think that might help me out when I go and talk to some of the small businesses I deal with to be able to have this exercise even on a much smaller scale than what she provides, but be able to pull some of this information that is so useful for the graphic designers who are creating the brand.
So useful for everybody. To be honest, this stuff transcends. And I work with a person and they're doing the overall high level branding, but what they don't realize is that when you get really granular, I need that phrase, that sentence, that in your ads, right? That it all flows together if it's done really well. And Ashley's saying amazing and yes, collaboration. Hayley, you mentioned a couple things here now. Now you did. You mentioned research and you mentioned USP, right? Which is unique selling proposition. So I would like to first go into the unique selling proposition and then into the unique, and then into the where we can research. And really, because I've seen people, be like, oh, you need your buyer persona, and they're just making up somebody. And it's not based on research. It's, based on some ideals. So that I think it'll really help people here. If you guys are online and joining us, tell me what you want to hear and what kind of questions you have for Hayley, because we got her. We got her. Right? So
I'm an open book.
And we appreciate that, and this is why collaborating with other marketers and learning from one another, we can all do a better job. That's why we're here.
Yeah, and it makes sense because marketing is such a huge discipline, right? So I focus on this area. And so I learn everything I possibly can about this area. Well, I can't possibly know everything about everything that you do. I can't possibly know everything about everything Greg does. Like, it's just not humanly possible. So collaborating like this, really, I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And to go back to businesses getting a strategy in the first place is if you don't have that initial strategy, really you're winging it on absolutely everything you're doing in your business. From trying to figure out who your target customer is, trying to figure out what kind of branding you're creating, and how to create the marketing material. You just don't know, and you're making things up and hoping your marketing works and hoping your branding is creating the proper persona for your business. So we can't go back to how important it is to have someone like Hayley create a brand strategy, or just think about it on your own. If you can't afford someone to do it, at least you have to be thinking about these things before you jump into all of these other aspects of your business on a whim.
Well, and this is the thing, where to start, right? Because we're all, you're sailing the boat as it's going. So, yeah, good points, Greg. Good points. Dana's joined us. Yay. Hi, Dana. And, Ashley is saying collaboration, and I wanted to mention that as well, because Ashley is a blog writer and has her own business doing writing for people. So it all ties in. We all work together, right? It's a team effort. So back to that unique selling proposition, my friend. How can we help people discover their unique selling propositions?
So again, you start with research, right? You have to research who else is out there solving the problem that you're solving, right? So who are your competitors? But you have to look more broadly than that. So of course you've got like direct competitors, right? So for me, like people might think that you are a competitor for me, right?
Right. Funny.
They could.
They would.
Right? I don't, because I see you as a partner, but people could say, because you also teach people marketing, right? Mm-hmm. But you look at your competitive set, but you also look more broad. So how else can they solve the problem? Like not a competitor. So if I think about like a gym, for instance. So if you own a gym, fitness, Zumba, whatever, karate, and the main benefit that people are getting is that they are becoming active and feeling better about themselves, right? What other ways can they become active and feel better about themselves? It's not just the other gyms. There's books, there's treadmills, there's sports teams, all of that stuff. So you have to look at the whole broad spectrum of your competitive set. Then you have to look at the research that you did with your customers and figure out what exactly do they really want. Mm-hmm. Then you look at your competitive set. What do they offer? You look at yourself. What do you offer? And then you find the sweet spot. So the sweet spot is what your ideal customer really, really wants that you offer and your competitor does not offer. That's your unique selling proposition. No. And sometimes it's really hard to come up with that. So it's important to look at all elements of your brand strategy before you come up with that, because it could be your purpose or it could be a core value that is the most important thing to your customers or to your ideal customer. And so that could become your unique selling proposition. It may not be, the benefit. It may not be. So there's 6 different things that we look at in my boot camp on what is possible to choose for a unique differentiator for yourself. Mm-hmm. But that's a place to start.
Right? That's pretty deep. It goes really deep. So, so how much, okay, so for people that can't afford to do, a course, and they're going to cobble it together all on their own, because we know that there's a lot of us out there. Oh, hi, Jessica. We know that there's a lot of us out there that are, trying our hardest, doing our best. So how long would you spend, and would you revisit this often? Like how long, if you're going to teach yourself, how long do you think you'd spend on this? Because you have time instead of money, right? Yeah.
So it's a lot of self-reflection, right? So the biggest time spends are going to be on doing your customer research. Because the more people who are your ideal customer, and your ideal customer is not necessarily the one who buys from you the most. It could be the one that you enjoy working with the most, the one that gives you the most lifelong value. Like there's all kinds of things you can look at to define that person. But the more interviews that you do, the better you're going to be able to find the commonalities between those interviews and figure out what is really going on and what is really the most important things. What is their buyer's journey? So I would say you spend the majority of time on that. Maybe, you interview 10 people. It takes you an hour each, 10 hours for those interviews. Then you take a few hours to lay them all out on your table and find the commonalities. Mm. And then a lot of the other branding stuff is self-reflection, right? What is the purpose of your business? What are the core values of your business? You take your core values and turn those into your brand personality. So
good, right, Craig? So good.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm curious about is whether or not this is a task only for the business owner, or can someone help, or could they task other people to do things for them? Like, or is this such an intimate thing that only the business owner can take care of and figure out?
Yeah, so for small businesses, I would suggest the business owner does the majority, but they don't have to do all the interviews, right? They don't have to do the competitive research, but they have to be the ones behind deciding ultimately what is at stake in the ground, what am I going to stand for? They have to be behind that, because I've been in companies where I've done that work and the owner just nodded and agreed and said, this is great, like, yep, love it. And then they don't follow through. So then there's no brand consistency because they don't really own it, right? So it has to be, I recommend, like, when I do my stuff, I say, you're the business owner. If it's a small business, you are the one that I want to work with. And yes, you can have your extended team help you, but they have to be the decision makers.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. It's super important, right? Like, just so Greg is asking and I'm asking, if you got questions for Hayley, you better put them in here, because we're digging in. So Hayley, you mentioned research, and Greg, I know you wanted to touch on this too. So what would you suggest to people just starting out, or people already who own a business, who, are like, for me, like, I had clients when I started my business. I kind of went the backwards route of getting clients and went, oh, I'm in business, and building from there. And then I had Greg's help and other people, but yeah, like everybody else, I cobbled it together. So what would you recommend people doing to do their research now that they're in the thick of it,
Yeah. So, you can use a questionnaire that I'm going to give you, or there's two questions that I would ask your most ideal favorite customers, the ones that you would want to multiply over and over and over again. That's who you want to talk to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the two questions I would ask is, one, if you were to describe my business to someone else, what would you say?
I asked that
because that is
question,
your brand,
right?
Whatever they say, that's your brand right now, right?
I think that's
The second,
good.
Yeah, I love that question because it is very eye-opening. So if they say about me, you're a marketing coach, then I've not done a good job articulating my brand, because my brand is not about me being a marketing coach.
What is your brand about, my friend?
My brand is about ensuring that small business owners are not alone and making dreams come true. That's what my brand is about. So you'll see that in a lot of things that I do, I have a lot of like words. Let's do this. Let's talk. Like, I use let's because it's us together. It's that co-creation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the idea in terms of my brand personality is like, I'm your BFF. So when you look at my posts, it's like I'm trying to talk to my customers, my fans, in the same way that I would talk to my best friend.
Interesting.
So that is my brand personality. So not like, for your brand personality, you don't always have to say cheerful, positive, educated. You can actually say, I'm a mother bear, right? I'm like the police officer. I'm like whatever, right?
Right.
And for me, for my brand, it's I'm your BFF. Yours can be I'm a geek. Right? That can be your brand personality. So then you don't want to go on and do anything that's not on brand. So if you do anything that, when you define your brand personality, if you do anything outside of that, I say that's your litmus test. And Greg would probably totally agree. If he knows your brand personality, it's going to make his job a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right?
True. So speaking of brand personality, is that different than brand identity, people?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the tone.
Right?
It's the tone and personality of your brand. And the brand identity is like that outward.
I mean, I would say there is some crossover. I mean, the brand identity is the visual to the what your persona is, right? So if you're a business that's trying to project fun and approachable, and you want your graphics to be fun and approachable and things like that. So, but again, going back to coming up with a strategy, having that defined gives someone like me the ability to know exactly what kind of graphics I should be creating for the business. So my job is to try to make those graphics come across as what that business persona is.
And I think you do.
So I would hope that I can have a little crossover.
Right?
if
Yeah, I mean,
if
you
I don't
need
have
it.
any crossover, I'm not creating the graphics right for the business.
Right? Ashley's saying she's a shot of espresso. So part of her brand identity is that she loves coffee. I think she needs it because she has 2 young children, just like you, actually, Hayley. So,
Yeah.
so Greg, now that we're here in this cusp of maneuvering from strategy into identity. And so, how do people build that identity? What kind of questions are you asking yourself or clients to pull that information out?
Well, with 4 minutes left, I'm wondering if we should recap on identity and possibly do a future on the actual identity. Because I actually have one last question that might be
okay.
last. Is for myself. What types of things, Hayley, would I expect to find in a document that you provide? I know you talk generally about, how to come up with it and what's in it, but what necessarily can I take out of specifically that would help someone like me as the designer create those graphics? Is it basically just what you've been talking about, text, like what the business is all about, what their feeling is, what their identity is, who their client base is, or is there any other details?
Yeah, there would be some more details. So it would depend. Like if I were to brief you on something, for instance, I would create a creative brief where the personality would be a big one, the tone. But the most important thing is, what is the single most important thing you want to convey, right? If they could tell you, what is the single most important thing I need to convey in this website, logo, or whatever, I think that is really hard to come up with because that's putting a stake in the ground, right? So that is the key element to a really good creative brief in my book, is to be able to answer that question. And the only way you can answer it is to understand your customers and what is going to, and understand what you want the website to do, right? If you want the website to take them on a journey, if you want the website just to sell, if you want, like, depending on what you want it to do, your single most important thing to convey. So, tone, special deliverables, stuff like that. But I would give you a brand strategy document as well. And that would include what's the brand personality, what's the promise, what's the brand positioning, which is basically your unique differentiator, right? What's your purpose? What's the business purpose? Why are you doing this? Like, what's the purpose? And the reasons to believe, right? What are the reasons to believe that you can deliver on your promise?
Interesting.
So all of that would be included in a document to you.
It's a big deal, this marketing thing, I will say. A lot of thinking, a lot of planning. I mean, and because the field is so broad, like literally, even with the 3 of us in this room, this cyber room, we do not hit on some things. We are not specialists in some areas. We are not on certain platforms. It is crazy how, and you know what? Every marketer will be like, you have to start here, or you have to start over here. And to be honest, I think if we really drill in, I think we have to start here. As a marketer says.
The strategy and the identity follows you in every single channel that you choose.
Right.
Like, that is the foundation. You need to get both the strategy and the identity.
And so this is a hard thing to get to know from your clients, because I don't know about you, but I have some clients that are running businesses and they're like, really, lady, you need this information. And so it's hard to pull it out of your clients. It's hard to pull it out of yourself. And that's why we talk about it. Right. So I think Greg might be right. We might have to revisit this topic. And so a couple things, guys, if you're watching, is if you've written down something on a piece of paper during this talk, I want you to write in the comments what it was, because that's one of your takeaways. So for me, I'm going to start doing interviews because I have some ideal clients, but I think I need to spend some more time there. So where do you need to spend time? And Now we're going to kind of close it out, realize that we did not talk much about brand identity. We'll revisit this. If you would like Hayley back, because I know you want her back, mention that too, because every month, once a month, at the end of the month, we are bringing in a speaker to help us grow our businesses and to learn from one another, because that's what it's all about. Ashley is saying she needs to solidify her brand and use it in the materials. Yes. So on that note, my friends, Hayley, we are going to send people your way to learn about you, but where can we send them?
I would say my Facebook page is probably the most active.
Okay.
So if you go over to Marketing on Purpose, you'll learn all about the opportunities for me to help you to create a brand strategy. You can join the DIY group,
right.
Which is
a good group.
Where I go on and give tips all the time on mostly on the strategic portion of your business. Right. Yeah, I would say go to my Facebook page.
Okay. And she's part of the group too, so always field questions, And also, okay, so this download that you're going to share, do you want to share it can we share it after in the group or in this? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah. And guys, you'll probably have to pass over your email, but I think it might be well worth it. And Greg, mm-hmm. my teammate and confidant, I adore you. Let me just say, where can people find you if they're looking?
They can find me at my website, original72.com, or engage with us in the Cyberpunk Geek Facebook group.
Right. Today is Socials Day, people. Get social. Lots of news going on. Question before I leave is, have you heard the news about Facebook? Does it make you want to leave this platform? Because that's a big deal. It's a big deal what's going on. So don't forget to pay attention to the news. Social media is your friend, but they're also doing some weird things. So that being said, you know where to find me. I'm in the group. I'm so glad everybody joined today. We appreciate your time so much. Now we're going to wave, and I'm going to try to finish this. Bye. Greg, wave.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.